Happy Mechanicking Day, Broknex. We're in the shop, and today we're going to give a detailed instructional video, how-to guide, whatever you want to call it, on how to install tracks on your Can Am Outlander. These are the Apache 360 long tracks. And winter came and found out the tires just weren't good enough this year. So, give this a few minutes to drip dry and we'll get started. Okay, just for a size comparison, they say they give you extra ride height clearance. So I'll do some measuring to see from the ground to whatever fixed point it is, maybe the bottom of the bumper or something square or something I can figure out, or the bottom of the fender here. Probably won't be able to do that with tracks on, but we'll see what kind of increases we get in ground clearance. That'll give me center height. So right now, sitting on the ground, we're at 26 inches. Ooh. Just shy of 26 inches. And just shy of 66 centimeters. It's round. It's hard to do something on the round. So if I'm just eyeballing it on the front, just shy of 26. Of course, being Alaska, when things get here, they arrive frozen. So ice. This should be mounting kit. This arrived by dog sled this afternoon. Nice. Hey, the instructions didn't get wet. That's some good French cardboard if the instructions don't get wet through all that. All that stuff. I hope they give you stickers. Well, I've talked to other people who have this, and they say they didn't get this book, the instruction manual, and they had to download it on the internet from Can Am. And I'm glad I don't have to download it, because it's much easier to have paper in front of you to figure this out. But we'll go through all the pieces bit by bit and how to install all this. It's hard to open boxes with one hand, so you're trying to film. Oh, there. You do it. You come over here. This box isn't labeled. There's one labeled box with this whole thing. Oh. A little piece. No, this is all steel. A bunch of steel. Oh no, found some plastic. Ugh. Oh. I don't know. Oh, I see. This is an A-arm kit. There must be another A-arm. See, this is this bolts to underneath the front control arm. Oh, look at that. See, and they're labeled right and left. That is good. The first step, once the tires are off, I'm not going to bore you with taking tires off, because we all know that, is taking this plastic guard off. You have a 10 mil here and a T27 Torx on the other side. I've already taken this side off. They come off real easy. Make sure you put the bolts and the nuts back in them and put them away for the summer. And you're left with a bare A-arm. So now we can start installing the lower bracket that attaches on to the lower A-arm on each side. The instructions aren't really all that great in my opinion. So this is the left side A-arm. You'll have a U-bolt that'll go in here. You'll slide that over the end of your control arm here. We'll need the nuts to go with that. To tighten them up is a 15 millimeter. We'll need the arm, and the other important piece, part of this puzzle, is this bolt that hangs right here. And that's on this assembly thingy. I have no idea what it's called, but we're going to go ahead and take the nut or the bolt from that. Drop that into there. So before we install the A-arms, there's these guards, and the instructions don't tell you at all. It's terrible instructions on which way these things go. So I'm guessing they go here, and there's two little screws that are in the bag, and they're little Torx bits. Aha! There we go. Weren't you telling me there's a overturned truck of monkeys somewhere?
Yeah.
There we go. So the reason you want to put this bolt in here before, you can see once this thing's installed, you got no way to install that afterwards. So it has to go on now. For this next part, you see this bracket here, these pieces slip into here. That'll go there. So I'm not tightening anything up yet, just putting everything in place, and then I'll go through and torque everything like it's supposed to be. All right, so we'll have, again, there's slots grooved into here. This will come over, bolt goes through, nut goes on. So now this lower control arm bracket, once tightened down, will be attached in 3 points. You got it right here, all around the bar, right here, all around the bar, and then the U-bolt right here by the ball joint. So what we're working on next is the anti-rotation arms. This is how they come assembled. Of course, with that bolt you saw, that's where you get the bolt that drops onto the lower control arm portion. So we have to assemble it as they say here. We're going to take this back nut off, this spring holder and the spring, and we're going to measure this distance here to be a distance of 40 millimeters. Again, that's written poorly. Terrible. So what they're talking 40 millimeters is the difference between this nut and this nut. So we're going to run this down together until it's 1.5 inches or 40 millimeters. Now we install this spacer, the rubber spacer, in this piece. We have all the attaching hardware, I think. I think we're going to install this first. Now the limiter strap goes on here. Limiter strap, spring, of course, backing plate, nylon lock nut. Okay, once we get those things in place, we should be able to tighten it all down. If you look at this, there's two sides to this washer thing. This side goes up, and the nylock goes against it like this. So, nut. Okay, so I'll get some wrenches and torque that all down. "35 foot-pounds. So apparently you have to download another manual, other instructions to properly tension this thing. So I'll wait till I get the other track on and do that. So now I'm not going to bore you with doing it again on the other side, so I'm going to do the other front side, and when I'm done with that, we'll get started with the rear. So now we've moved on to the rear. Make sure you jack it up safely and block it. And we're going to remove this plastic cover here on this side. You cut this here. It's a plastic thing you cut right there because it's attached to the other side, I think. And then we can just, right? Oh! There we go. This is the piece you have to cut. I think mine was on its last legs to begin with. Not every Outlander has brake lines on both sides. Mine only has them on one side, so I have to remove this. Looks like it was barely hanging on to begin with in the first place. What a terrible idea. So to remove that is a T30 Torx. Okay, we're getting down to the nitty-gritties. There are not nearly as many pieces left on the board, so this is the part that goes into that square channel that was covered up by these things. Should slide in here. Luckily, I have a brand new machine, so I don't know how far it goes. It doesn't say. It says centered. So I guess I'll break out a tape measure and see. So now we have to get these kind of centered, and you'll have a right and a left. These will go onto here, and you notice how they sweep forward towards the machine. All right, so next we have to move this back side of this bracket here and install. Make sure I'm working on the left-hand side now, so this one says left hand. That'll take the place of the one that's back here. So you have to break these free. They were not fun to break free. They are a T50 Torx, and they were quite tight. They were super torqued down good, I tell you. So, and they have nylocks on the back. You can't get a wrench on them. What you do is, in the back of this, the nuts fit in that slot so they can't turn. But I had to break out some ugga-duggas to get that thing to break free. Pull that out. And this is the one that's coming off. That's the one we're taking off. And this is the one we're replacing it with. You do not want to reuse nylocks, so they give you a bag of 8 new nylocks. So make sure you put them in there, and you tighten those like all the rest of them to 35 foot-pounds. Well, where we were at on the tracks is this is the rear bracket that mounts on the front of the rear track on the back side, and then these are the anti-rotation bars that go through the bracket and attach to the bottom of the wheeler right there. Now the ones they sent me were wrong, and there's no way I could figure out how to make them work. So I had to talk to the guys at Can Am, and now they sent what looked to be the correct ones. At least they're faced the right direction. So hopefully I can get those on and those will work, and we'll see how it goes. So you have to remove all 4 of these bolts, and they give you new nuts to go on there. They even give you new bolts, but I don't think I need to use them. I'll probably save them for later as they start to strip out over the years of on and off. Actually, once it's on, it's on. I won't have to take those off ever again. So we'll get that mounted up. Then we'll see how to attach the anti-rotation bar to the four-wheeler. All right, so once the bracket is installed, facing the right way in the proper orientation, you tighten these to, according to the book, 35 foot-pounds. 35, and you have to do a cross pattern, kind of like you're tightening lug nuts on a vehicle. There we go, 35 foot-pounds all the way around. So I'll show you the orientation of how it's supposed to sit, because that's one thing they do not tell you in the instructions. Granted, I got this rod just sitting in there real quick. I still have to add the bushings to it. But if you notice, it's facing back, and then when it's all said and done, it'll sit right around like that at that angle. So we'll get the rubber bushings mounted up on that, and we'll get this attached to the four-wheeler. All right, so again, we set this distance to 1 inch, and now we have these pieces that need to go on. We have that set in there like so. I just have it sit on that bar, so it's not really attached yet. And so you add these, and they are a pain. They don't go on there very easy. Okay, that's good to know. We'll have to work those up. So they'll go on basically like this. Rubber thing, washer, rubber thing, washer, rubber thing. And then this one, if you notice, has a different inside diameter. It doesn't fit over that tube, so that's the very bottom washer. That'll go on in the end right before the lock nut. So let me get these things weaseled on here, and we'll see where we're at. So the finished product should look like this. Of course, now I got to go through and tighten everything up. It's still not attached to the bracket up front. So let's tighten this up. All right, so once you tighten up those bushings in that rod, now you connect that arm to this piece, the back of the four-wheeler. So they give you this setup with a carriage bolt. So that'll go through. The next thing is the big washer. You have this bushing and this rubber thing. Then your bracket, which will go over there. Then this washer and that nut. In that order. Got it? Good. So now we've reached the point of the build where we're going to install the DPS module that controls the power steering for the track system. So I've went ahead and removed the side plastics. And this is the plug we're looking at here. This gets unplugged. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Maybe, maybe not. Oh. Okay, well, I'll do that off camera. This gets unplugged. This gets routed under here. And this plug will come out, get pushed down into here to plug into the back of this. This plug will go up and plug into where that one dead ended up there. So let's find someone with really small hands and get to building. All right, so now I have this factory plug that was up here, and if anyone ever wondered what the heck was in that white thing up there, it's just a dead end. There's nothing in it. It just holds the end of the plug, keeps it clean and dry, I'm assuming, for future use, or I don't know, but that's where it dead ends. So I have this tucked in down here, and now it's time to tuck in the module. And they're saying, they give you a zip tie, and they're saying that they want you to zip tie it to this bracket. So make sure it's out of the way of your shifter lever and away from this right here. Let's get some different light in here. Aha, there we go. There's your exhaust. So you don't want it touching your exhaust, or any of the wires touching your exhaust for that matter, because there'll be melted piles of goo on top of your transmission when you're done. So make sure you keep all your wires and that module away. Routed the end of the pigtail from the DPS module back up here and hooked it into this dead end. And after a little bit of homework, I found out why this thing is the dead end. What this thing is for is your Can Am dealer or service guy can take that out and plug into the brain, and that's where they do all their programming and diagnostics and all that kind of technical stuff that I just don't do. So now that we have this in here, we're going to zip tie the module here to this bracket away from your shifter arm. So the shifter arm is going to move back and forth, and you don't want any interference from your DPS module. And it looks like it's going to sit a good, I don't know, 2 inches away from the exhaust manifold there. Hopefully that's good enough. So we'll get this zip tied up and out of the way and move on to the next step. Okay, every nut is torqued, every bolt is fastened, everything's done the way I think it should be done. We used a torque wrench on everything. So let's put the seats back on, plastic's all buttoned down. Only one thing left to do.
Let's get on it and ride.
Yeah. Well. Oh, there it goes. Is it not in gear? You have to hold the brake. It's dark.
Yeah, it is.
Let me get a coat.
Yeah.
Okay.